If you're just starting out eating a healthy plant-based diet, it can be a little overwhelming heading into the grocery store to figure out what to buy.
That's why we've narrowed it down to our top 15 favorite foods in this way of eating.
Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, this is Dylan.
And this is Reeves.
We make videos helping you to take the complexity out of your plant-based diet so that you can actually stick to it forever. Because too many people make this way too hard. And you think, oh, I'm gonna go into the grocery store and I've gotta buy a million things for all of these meal planner recipes and all this stuff. No, take all that out, make it really, really simple. We have found that our recipes use pretty much the same 15 or 20 ingredients. We always know when we're low on them, so it's very easy to go to the grocery store and just pick from the things you know you're low on. You don't have to even make a list half the time. We do make shopping lists, but it's only so that we don't accidentally forget something we need. You don't really have to think that hard. If it's for our day-to-day, week after week food, it's really the same list all the time.
And every once in a while when I go rogue and I buy something random, I forget to eat it or use it.
That is common. If we're doing it for one specific fun recipe, you know, on the weekends, maybe we'll make something a little fancier or more complex or more chefy, and then we'll buy some ingredients for that. But for the most part, when you're eating day in, day out, your weekly meals, your daily meals, you've got to make it really, really simple. So in an effort to simplify the way that you eat, try to pick from fewer ingredients and fewer recipes too, for that matter. So let's talk about our favorite foods. We don't do this very often.
Yeah, the first food I have to mention, of course, is the potato. Look, I'm pimping right now.
Tell us what that means before you offend anyone.
Potato in my pocket, of course. I cannot live without potatoes. They're full of carbohydrates, they're fat-free, they keep you full, they're in a lot of delicious recipes. You can eat them by themselves. You can include them into soups and stews. You can keep one in your pocket for in case you have an emergency and you're out and you need something to snack on. I can't live without it.
Sweet potato, russet potato. My favorite is the russet potato.
What about French fries? You can eat French fries. And this way of eating, they just don't have oil, and you bake them till they're crispy and they're delicious.
How about broccoli and cauliflower? I'm not just gonna say vegetables, okay? We're gonna talk about the ones we buy most often. I don't go through a ton of broccoli. It's either in a dish or I just put our cheese sauce on top. You just steam broccoli and cauliflower, cheese sauce on top, boom.
You know what I love about broccoli and cauliflower is you can get it frozen and it is just as delicious fresh.
That's true. You can just steam it up, frozen, fresh, already chopped and ready.
Another food I can't live without, onions. Onions give so much flavor to the dish. They're in almost every dish that we make.
When you're not cooking with salt, oil, sugar, you've got to add a lot of flavor. Onion is a root vegetable, but it is kind of an herb and spice too for me, like garlic. But I do feel like onion is sort of in the herbs and spice category for me because it is just packed with actual flavor. I put it in everything. I swear I don't know if we have any recipes that don't have garlic, onion. It's pretty much in everything.
You got white onion, you got yellow onion, you got red onion, you have shallots?
Shallots and onion and garlic together. Leeks, chives. We've always got that in stock no matter what. How about carrots? Can we put carrots and celery together? Because carrots, celery, and onion are a mirepoix.
Mirepoix.
I don't use carrots and celery as much as I use onions, so we'll think of them as separate. I love carrots. You gotta have carrots on the list. I've always got them in stock. They keep really well in the fridge too. Like that's one of those things that you can have in the fridge for like weeks before it starts to turn. Celery will last. You gotta keep that one closed up, but it'll last.
You know, we eat really simply, so we're doing dump and go soups and stews, and carrot, celery, onion, garlic that you mentioned before. If you've got those things, you can make a myriad of different soups and stews. One pot, don't saute, turn it on, get full, put your potatoes in there, and get on with the day. You don't have to be fancy. These are delicious vegetables. You get to taste the flavor of the actual vegetables, not the salt, sugar, and oil that coats it.
How about beans? All legumes, split peas, yellow
Lentils.
split peas, green split peas, lentils, red lentils, obviously all of the beans, pinto beans, black beans, garbanzo beans. You got the kidney bean, you got the mayacoba, you got all the beans.
The mayacoba.
There's a lot of beans. There's a lot of beans. I would say our go-to beans are probably the chickpea, the pinto, and the black bean. Those I can get without the added salt. Canned beans have so much added salt.
My goodness.
I loved canning my own beans for a long time until I got really busy with work, and now I can't do that so easily. I find those three beans are the main, and white beans, but they're harder to find with no salt, so I do eat less white beans because of that.
What about red lentils and green lentils? We use those all the time
I
too.
love all the lentils. I love green split peas. I love love an Instant Pot green split pea soup. Oh, yeah, you can't do without those.
If you have a small pantry, pick your 3 favorites and just keep those. Don't get cluttered. Don't give yourself too much things to decide about if it's just gonna overwhelm you.
And we don't buy a lot of dry beans anymore. We'll use the dry pinto beans for something like our Instant Pot refried bean recipe. But for the most part, the canned beans are just such a time saver. You don't have to think ahead. You don't have to soak. That's why the Instant Pot refried beans I like, because it's a no soak recipe.
Yeah, Mexican charro beans. Ooh, delicious. How about the tasty and delicious mushroom?
It's not a vegetable. It's not a starch. What is it? It's just a fungus, right?
Hey, you're a fun guy.
I am a fun guy. I love mushrooms. I used to hate mushrooms. Didn't you used to hate mushrooms too?
Oh, I hated mushrooms.
And
I pick them off of everything.
Now we love them. I love them. Fresh mushrooms the best. You can get them frozen and sliced and all the other kinds of ways. But I love a fresh mushroom so much. I love mushroom powder. We use a powdered dry mushroom in a lot of our products because it just adds such a perfect flavor without being like overpowering.
And I'm not too crazy adventurous with the mushrooms. We buy the baby bellas. We buy those over and over, and we're pretty much good with that.
That's a good point. You can get overwhelmed with some of the YouTube videos other people make about mushrooms and trying to recreate the meaty texture and all this stuff. You can get really chefy with mushrooms. If you want to stick to this forever, I recommend you save that chefiness for the weekends. Squash. Squash is something, if I had to do without it, I could, but I still like zucchini. I have on my list all the time. You don't love it as much, so I'm like, I can go without it if I need to, but I still usually always buy zucchini. Yeah. But the other squashes, like butternut squash, we usually buy in frozen cubed because it's more work to prepare a butternut squash. The winter squashes and stuff aren't on my regular purchase rotation.
I love zucchini because you can put it in or on top of anything and it makes it so delicious.
Yeah.
What about peppers?
Can't do without them.
Bell pepper? Jalapeno
Required.
pepper?
Required.
Habanero?
Oh, I don't get that one every time, but I do love to play with the habaneros. I love peppers. The poblano pepper, the New Mexico or hatch chili pepper, or the Anaheim, those are pretty similar. The dried chili pepper pods that we use a lot to flavor things.
We put those in the cheese sauce.
Oh, I love chili peppers. Even just regular old sweet bell pepper. We use bell pepper a lot, so we always got those in the fridge.
Some of the Mexican peppers, you can get mild versions, or maybe you like it spicy and you get the hot stuff and you add that in, because we've always said that if you don't have a spice tolerance, maybe you should work your way up to one, because we don't eat salt, oil, or sugar, so you want to hit another taste receptor on your tongue.
Yeah, it really is nice to enjoy a little bit of heat.
You love pico. I love raw jalapeno on a salad. Delicious.
How about greens?
Ooh, yeah.
Greens I like cooked, I'll be honest. I don't make a lot of salads. If someone else made the salad for me, would I start every meal with a salad? Absolutely I would. Yeah. But if I'm gonna be cooking, making food, I'm gonna make a dish that's got the greens just cooked right in. It's not like you gotta cook them long, because greens are really fast.
You can eat more when they're cooked.
That's true, they shrink. So I just really like greens mixed into the dish, whether it's chopped spinach, kale,
Swiss chard.
I do like making nourish bowls with romaine lettuce. There's still a lot of savory going on in that bowl, a lot of starch in the bowl still, whether it's lentils or rice or whatever. I will say I don't do a ton of salads. Smoothies, I like to put a lot of kale in my smoothies, and I'll get my greens that way. It's very important to get your greens. You pick the way you want to get them.
What do vegan zombies like to eat?
Greens.
Grains. Can't live without grains. It should be the bulk of your meal. If you're not doing a potato, you should have a better rice, quinoa. Dylan likes to mix it in. I like to do the better rice and the thing on top. However you like to eat it, just get it in there, but you need your starchy grains.
Let's talk about the ones we actually use day in, day out. That would be quinoa, the brown rice, the oatmeal. I don't use a lot of millet.
Every time I try to go off and get like buckwheat or farro, I don't tend to eat it.
They're not our go-to. They're not in enough recipes that we make because we're just not used to those as much. And all the other ones we mentioned are so easy to get that why complicate things?
Another thing we buy every time we go shopping are tomatoes. And specifically, you love the Roma tomatoes.
I do love the Roma tomato. They tend to be the cheaper option. They're easier to core, to take like the seeds and stuff out if you want to. I definitely love tomatoes. Grape tomatoes, cherry tomatoes. You don't love the raw tomato as much as me.
But I love a cooked tomato.
Canned tomatoes, we buy a lot of canned tomatoes at once so that I'm not running out of them because we use so much. I hate having to rebuy things I use a lot. So even for like the beans and the grains, I have buckets of them down there in the basement and a whole rack of diced tomatoes and tomato sauce.
You don't realize how much you use them. They're a base of a lot of sauces we make. They're in a lot of dishes. They're so versatile and delicious.
I love them. How about fruit, Reeves? I do not actually eat a lot of fruit. I mean, if the fruit is in the fridge, chopped and ready, will I grab for it and eat some? Yeah, I probably would. I could do better about that.
Yeah, I don't eat a lot of fruit either. But, you know, I get my token bananas. And I like to have a lot of fruit in the freezer for when I do actually feel like I want it or want to make a smoothie out of it.
I love fruit in my smoothie. It's probably the #1 way I get the fruit. Fruit is extremely healthy. It's an excellent snack between meals that isn't high in calorie density, so it's not going to cause weight issues or challenges for most people unless you're like overdoing it on fruit. Fruit is sugary. That's why it's really good to eat whole fruit. I love the dried fruit with no added sugar on top from Costco, because just drying it out alone makes it very sweet. All whole fruits are excellent. Juice a little citrus, but you know, juicing it again is not as whole as eating the whole food.
Fruit makes a great dessert, so find the one you like and buy that over and over.
Another food that I no longer have to buy at the grocery store, but some people might if they can't give our products, is veggie broth. We have a veggie broth mix. We use veggie broth pretty much all the time when we're sauteing. Of course, you can just use water if you want for sauteing and keeping things from sticking to the pan, but we just use veggie stock because we're gonna be adding it to the dish. Probably like if it's a 1-pot meal and it needs liquid, I like to add veggie broth. Again, if you're not using salt, oil, sugar, you need to add more flavor to the dish. So this is kind of like an herb and spice is the veggie stock. If you haven't tried our veggie broth mix, you should definitely try it. No added salt, oil, sugar. It is so tasty, and it is way cheaper than buying a quart of veggie stock in the store. Is like what, $3, $4?
Yeah. And
it's usually packed with salt. A lot of them even have oil. This is like $1 and change, $1.25 a quart, pretty much.
And there's 22 quarts in there.
Try it out. But yeah, seriously, not just trying to plug our product. Veggie broth is like a #1 ingredient in our cooking, like all this list is. They're all #1.
Yeah, everything's #1.
How about the last one that I wanted to mention, which is super important?
A little bit of fat.
A little bit of fat. Our favorite ways to add richness to the meal is to add some fat, whole natural fat. What do I mean by that? Nuts, seeds, avocado,
tofu,
soy products like tofu. We're just putting them all in the fat category. We always have tofu in the fridge, but my favorite nuts would be the walnut, the almond, and the cashew. The cashew is definitely the one we use the most, and hemp seeds.
Oh yeah.
That we've been using a lot more lately because Luca's school doesn't allow nuts. Those kinds of things blended into sauces, into 1-pot meals to add richness. Very important in my opinion to not totally go without fat. I know a lot of you watching, weight loss is very important to you right now because you might be in that stage, and so you're cutting out the fat as much as possible. And you should, but don't neglect the fat because you do need to add richness to the food. There's that balance, right? If the food's too bland and doesn't make you feel satisfied, like it's hitting the spot, then you're not gonna stick to this way of eating, even if you're losing weight right now. And you wanna think of this as a forever plan, your forever way of eating. Even if you're focusing on weight loss right now, I would encourage you not to eliminate fat altogether unless you know yourself so well that you must.
And we don't mean just pop in the cashews or eat an entire plate of guacamole by itself. Mix like a 1/4 cup of cashews into the sauce of the entire dish for your family, and that's enough for me to hit my taste buds and say, oh, that's delicious.
1/4 cup of cashews is like this much. I can eat that like this, and I have. And then the problem with that is you go and you get another handful and another handful. But if you think of the fat more like a condiment than a main food ingredient that you eat, then you're gonna be, I think, a lot more balanced with how you deal with those fats and integrate them into your cooking. Avocado, same thing. Try to use it as a condiment. If you make guacamole, add a little flavor on top of your big bowl of food so that it's not just like the main ingredient. Do we have avocado toast sometime? Yeah, sure. But you are getting a much bigger hit of fat at that time. So take what we've just said and build a list of your favorite foods that will become your go-to pantry items. If you cook with our recipes, like our cookbooks, which we hope you'll check out, all of our YouTube recipes, we have hundreds. They're gonna pull from this core list of ingredients for the most part.
So check out our other videos where we make delicious recipes using these foods we talked about today.
Thanks for watching this one. We'll see you on the next. Bye.
Bye.